All right, can everyone see my screen all right?
Yes,
Excellent. Thank you for the thumbs up. We appreciate it. All right, so the Proven Idaho Programs Review. So for those of you, I know we have a couple of new affiliates on here. And so I just want to just take a moment. Oh, by the way, I'm Susie Johnson, Associate Director, if you don't know who I am. and, and you already heard from Matt. And in the room there, we also have Rosalie Mullane and Cassie Wiesen, and all part of the ISGC staff. But for those of you who are not familiar with Proven Idaho programs, in our last proposal to NASA in 2019, it was a 4-year proposal. We proposed that maybe we would have a portfolio of multi-year programs. Prior to that, all of our money was always just competitive, and every year people had to propose for their grants, usually about 25,000 or whatnot. And so what we started to see was that we'd see the same proposals year after year, and they'd get funded because they were very successful and things like that. So then the affiliates decided, yeah, if we're seeing, we're seeing lots of proposals, but if we're having a small set that every year is writing a great proposal and every year showing good progress, why don't we try this Proven Idaho programs where they get 4 years of sort of guaranteed funding as long as they agree to jump through a couple extra hoops. So they wouldn't have to write a proposal every year, but they would have to do this where they present their progress to the affiliates, and then the affiliates get to rate their progress and provide recommendation on whether or not to go forward. So the purpose of today's review is you'll hear from each one of the Proven Idaho programs, and they'll tell you about their progress and their spending. And then this will help you determine that on your, there's a survey that you will fill out, whether you think, yes, we should release the final year funding for them, or to also include them in the 5th year extension proposal, like they've made sufficient progress and all that kind of stuff. And you can include other comments, like if you don't have a really black and white answer, you can provide comments for that. And Rosalie will kick the link to the review survey into the chat so that you all can have that. It's pretty straightforward. Each program is listed and you answer like a couple of questions for each one of them. All right. And so it's just, if you want to see this real quick while and it looks very much just like this. You put your name, and ideally, if there's more than one of you from an institution, we're asking for just one per institution, so you guys can collaborate on one, or just assign one person to it. But it's pretty straightforward, and then you can submit at the end any other comments, and you can send a copy to yourself. All right. And we are asking that you try to complete that survey today, if possible, while the information is still fresh in your mind. All right. Matt, was there anything that I forgot in reviewing that before we move forward?
No, we just suggest you open up that link right now, and then you can click your votes as each program presents.
Yep. And of course, if you need time to think about it, that's okay too. So, all right, just some top level
questions.
Yeah. So some top level information here. There's 2 slides just to give you an idea. So we are 3 years into the award. So at this point, people should have roughly expended 75%, except huge caveat here. The first year and a half of this was COVID. So everybody has had delays in spending. So don't judge too harshly on that, because, people have been working hard to make up, that time and spending lost during that time. And they'll talk about it within their their presentations. But so you can see the blue lines are the budget. So this is roughly where the 75% marker of the budget is for each of them. And then the green is what they've expended. Now, of course, that it is very possible that with some of these that there's an invoice in process coming from their institution or whatnot, and they can always talk about that. So so there's two pieces to this. One is, the NASA funds, and then the next is their cost share, right? And so because they all agreed to do one-to-one, and in some cases, some folks did a little bit more than one-to-one cost share. So you can see that that again, the cost share commitment is the blue, how much they've cost shared to date. So we have some programs that have actually cost shared more than they have spent. And so it's just a good thing that everyone seems to be doing, a relatively decent job on all of this. And so and this is just for the 4 years of funding. We haven't even talked about year 5 yet. And we've had discussions now with each one of the Proven Idaho programs about the 5th year extension and whether or not, they would be invited to go forward into the 5th year, depending on how the affiliates feel about this. And in that way, they have like 3 options, right? And that is in terms of spending. And that is one, that they don't think they would like to go into the 5th year, but they don't think they need any more money because they'll just spend the money that has not been spent yet. So that's option 1. Option 2 is that they want to go into the 5th year and they think they need that full year, like that $25,000 or whatnot, because they're going to be able to spend all of it. And then option 3 is they want to go in to the 5th year and they might only need a small top off, like, okay, I don't need the full, 25,000 or whatever. I might only need 5,000 or 10,000, and I'm confident that I can spend all that. So those are the things that we're thinking about for the 5th year. And so if depending on today's review and the good questions you ask and all that kind of stuff, then we'll decide who will be, putting in requests for extra funds or not, or if they think that they've got it, that sort of thing. All right. Any questions up to this point before we start turning it over to the different programs to present? And I know there's some things in the chat. Okay. Okay, I can't see everybody, so I'm assuming there's no hands raised. So with that, we're going to go in the order of like this chart. So Dan, are you ready to go first with RockSat? I thought I heard Dan join. Maybe he's muted.
Sorry, I was muted. I am.
All right, let me just pull up your slides. 1 second. I had to do yours slightly separately. Okay. All right. And Dan, I'm happy to move through these as you like me to.
Okay. Dan Lawrence, Northwest Nazarene University. And we've been doing RockSat for over a decade now. Those of you who don't know what RockSat is, it started as a project out of University of Colorado Boulder with this idea of a multi-university sounding rocket payload. So RockSat has a Rock-On workshop, and then it has RockSat C and RockSat X. And RockSat X is what we've been participating in. It's a 2-stage rocket, goes up to about 125 miles. Where we're experience microgravity, and as soon as we leave the atmosphere, the skin of the rocket comes off, so we're fully exposed to space. And so with that, we want our undergraduate students to have a hands-on experience working with NASA, doing real-world engineering, so that they can go out and get those jobs in aerospace that they want. We've had students out of this program be hired by NASA Houston, Blue Origin, lots of different space places. So this past year, we've had 10 students that have worked on the project. We had paid students to the students and 8 volunteers. And then this summer, kind of finishing up the project, which I'll go through in a little bit. We've had 4 students that have working for us all summer. When it comes to spending, we have not had any trouble spending on this project. The major part of the expense is the rocket launch, which, depending on whether we fly a half can or a full can, is between $13,000 and $27,000. We have met all of our metrics. We planned on 5 students participating in this last year. We had 10. We planned on 2 students traveling to Wallops. We sent 3 last August, 2 just a couple of weeks ago in June, and we're planning on having 4 join us in this August for this year's launch. So let me go ahead and tell you about this year's project. All the projects supported in the past few years have been similar. So go ahead and forward, Susie. So the students are pretty much completely in charge of this. I'm overseeing, but they're doing all the design work. They're the ones that are working one-on-one with NASA. And this is the project that they have this year. They called it Project Daedalus. So next slide. So essentially this project is a platform with 2 robotic arms. And so the 2 robotic arms eventually are going to try to use AI to pass objects back and forth in space. So last year we flew 2 arms. They didn't do as well in vibe and launch as we wanted to. We did have some video of a ball that was thrown off. But our cameras failed. So one of the goals this time is definitely to make sure our cameras work. But this year we have a new robotic arm design that is going to pass some balls, a cube, and a tool. The tool is the same tool that Made in Space printed on the space station. And see if we really can get these arms and all the electronics to survive the launch. And perform, and all the cameras and data taking. So go ahead and hit next slide. Here is a SolidWorks model that our students put together of our payload. As you can see, there's the 2 robotic arms that are really compact. As with all space-related research, space is a premium, so we have as much packed in as possible. We have the arms and the objects on the platform, and below the platform is our batteries and our electronics and our dry box that holds our jets and nanos that are controlling the arms and doing the AI. Next slide. With addition to the mechanical students doing all that, we have some electrical and physical students that are doing all of our electrical design. They created these boards that essentially control power on the pad once to our batteries. You can see all the motor controllers on there, all the connections that go to the 14 different stepper motors that are being controlled compact and in the space that we had available for printed circuit boards. Next slide. So our SolidWorks student, Jonathan, created a simulation so that you can see exactly how this payload, go ahead and hit play on that. This payload will work, showing the space that we have reserved on the rocket. You can see as it's really kind of a complex order of operations to get the arm unfolded and out. And then once they're out, it will grab the balls first and try to pass them back and forth. Next slide.
Oh.
Try again. Yeah, that's right. So here's the as-built. This was just before we shipped it last month to NASA Wallops. You can see the top and bottom of that rocket. So we actually last week got back from Wallops where we delivered it. We went through testing. We survived some really intense testing. They weren't supposed to do this test, but they did. They put us into a 5 hertz to 2000 hertz sine sweep with about a 1/2 inch to inch amplitude as we went through that. And we were extremely happy at the end that our electronics was still in one piece. The arms were still where they're supposed to be, and everyone was happy. The only thing that went wrong is there's a power transducer on there that switches on the batteries and off, and the students, as they often don't do, forgot a little bit about thermal dynamics. And during testing, you test over and over and over again, and on the second or third test, the transistor essentially got hot enough that it desoldered itself. So it's currently being shipped back. We will replace that component, get it fixed up, and this August it'll be launched. And we can send you out details if you want to watch the launch. I think this time is going to be a morning launch, so it'd be like 6 a.m. Eastern time, so you'd have a really early morning. I think next slide. Yeah, our future plans after we, if we're really happy with these arms, they survive, they do everything they're supposed to. Next time, really test the AI by throwing and releasing the object and using a point cloud to figure out where it is and have the other arm come grab it in space. Our idea here is either an astronaut's helper, something that could be placed on the back of a spacewalking astronaut, or even something that could find and track objects in space and deorbit them. So it's just proving the technology at this point. So I think that's all I have. If you have any questions.
Does anyone have questions about any of Dan's slides or about the program? Oh, Heidi.
How did you choose which students got paid and which were volunteers?
What we do is have kind of freshmen through seniors that are all working on this. And then the students that volunteer as freshmen and sophomore and kind of progress through everything, they're the ones that we say, all right, you've shown that you're really committed to the program. We'll hire you. And this last year, it was Juliet Haggett and Jonathan Herberger. And they are the team leads. They're the ones that are really dealing one-on-one with NASA. They were juniors this year. Next year, this is going to be their senior design project. So they'll be in charge, and we'll find a couple other sophomores and juniors that have been helping out that we'll hire them, as we have a policy that we can't pay students that are getting credit for a project.
And Susie, there's a question in the chat from Dan Corden, and it is Dan Lawrence planning on a year 5 extension?
Yes, we are planning on a year 5 extension. The CAN costs and the travel costs are what NASA, our ISGC has helped us with over the past. We provide, our cost matching is our time and the cost to build the experiment. So we build that into our costs. And we will definitely need the year 5 extension in order to continue this for next year's project.
Okay. Did anyone have any other questions?
Just a quick one to wonder if, do you other students get credit for the class or not? This is just more for help me out on mine too.
Yeah, the other students that are volunteering do not get credit for a class. They just look at it as experience, something that they can do hands-on, a great resume builder. Some of them, come in, work for a couple of months, are like, this isn't for me. And so they know that the possibility exists that this could turn into a paid gig, and also could turn into a really exciting senior design project. So,
Right, thanks.
Okay, if there aren't any other questions for Dan Lawrence, next up will be the University of Idaho program, and that's actually done by both Dan Corden and Fang Li. Dan, I'll bring up your slide first, if that's all right, and
Sure,
have you
thanks, Susie.
go. Right.
I'll give a friendly prompt while Susie's pulling up the slide to feel free and jump onto that survey and fill it out if you feel while Dan Lawrence's project is fresh in your mind.
All right, Dan, you could take it away.
All right, so as mentioned, Feng Li and I kind of share a project, so I'm going to talk about my side of it first, and then he'll jump on with his. I'm the faculty advisor for kind of our undergraduate, everywhere from freshman through senior, high altitude ballooning group, and so largely our expenses are we have a stipend that we pay the leadership team, and then we usually keep, and I think that stipend is supposed to be $7,500 per year. And then we have about $3,000 per year for just regular, expenditures that they're going to have. We had been doing pretty good with that. We just found out, or at least I just found out recently, that the $7,500 from last year's leadership didn't get paid out yet. So currently that doesn't look great. I put that in red to be like, we need to fix that. But yeah, normally that's where our expenses are. And what the students do, I mean, they really just do a couple of launches per year, putting a balloon up somewhere in the 80 to 100,000 feet. And they have various experiments. Each year they're supposed to pitch kind of a new set of experiments. So sometimes they deal with atmospheric measurements, or they're doing something with solar radiation. We did gravitational waves, various things like that. And a lot of it for the younger students is really just understanding how the systems work, for how do you transmit data over those kind of distances? How do you track the position of the balloon so that you don't lose it after you tell it to cut down, things like that. So they did have 2 launches this year. Both were, they're calling them successful. One of the, and they did retrieve the payload both times, but one of them, they didn't retrieve it until much later. It was eventually found by a farmer who called them and says, "Hey, I have a thing that belongs to you." So that, I mean, I would call that moderately unsuccessful, but it's a learning experience for them. Other things that they did this year, they designed 2 different new payloads, which is kind of for them, that's the piece below the balloon that houses all their experiments, batteries, satellite communications, all that stuff. They made them out of carbon fiber, and were able to save a lot of weight off of the payload itself, which really just means they can add more things to the payload and still keep it under the weight that they want. So the ones that they made were very good successes. We had been using Iridium modems, but they take a tremendous amount of power. And so this last year, they started doing a swarm communication system instead. And apparently that's been going pretty well. The other thing that they did is, after multiple semi-failures in the past, everything in the payload used to have its own power supply. And so we pushed them really hard to like design a single power supply that provides power for everything, so that like one bump doesn't mess up everything at all. So they've had pretty good success with that too. And I think that's, I mean, I don't want to take up too much time because Feng needs to fit his in as well. In terms of our plan moving forward, I mean, again, at least for VAST, the $7,500 student stipend and $3,000 in routine expenses is probably going to be just plenty for us. And doing a year 5, I think with that same budget would be just fine, if the powers that be want to keep doing that. One thing that has affected them very greatly is the cost of helium, well, cost and availability. So they did 2 launches, but they usually do a couple of test launches that they didn't do this year because they simply couldn't get helium. So that's something we're exploring alternatives, but most of the alternatives I don't really like. They're either that it's way less capacity that you can put up, or it's hydrogen, and that has its own set of issues too. So, but we're still kind of looking at that. But at least for me, I think that's all I wanted to present on.
Thanks, Dan. Okay, and Fang, I'll go ahead. Does anyone have questions for Dan while I pull up Fang's slide?
I've got a question. You mentioned that the 2022, 2023 stipends were not paid out. Is that going to be rectified since we're at the end of the fiscal year here, right? For these prior students, and is there a mechanism in place to pay out in future years if this funding is released?
Yeah, so typically I've waited until the spring semester to pay those out, and this year since I just found out about it yesterday, I'm not exactly sure what happened. It was in late April when I asked them to be paid, and it just didn't happen. So and I just found out, we got confirmation today that no, the students didn't get paid yet. So the intent is to spend last year's 7,500 to pay the students that were, it's the leadership team that gets that distributed. So pay that to the last year's leadership team. And then again, I like to wait until spring just because sometimes there's some transition, a student doesn't do well in a class and leaves the university, something like that. So, but yeah, I don't expect there to be any issue with that moving forward. But yeah, thanks, Robert.
Awesome, thanks.
And there's a question in the chat from Donna Llewellyn. Do you have information on the demographics of the students who participate beyond just the numbers that you had in your slide?
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. So when I first jumped on as faculty advisor, we had like one of the greatest diverse group ever. Like more than half of our leadership team were females, and they were really good at recruiting not just engineering students too. So that was like, that's where we went in with like, okay, this is the new normal. And unfortunately, that hasn't been the new normal. Of our roughly 20 students that are very involved, we have about 3 female students that are part of that cluster. Of the 50 total, the 20 that are really involved and the 30 that are just kind of showing up, we've got maybe about 15% that are female. In terms of international students, it's probably, I want to say it's less than 10% actually. So.
And Dan, do you guys plan to do anything in the coming year to try to recruit more students, a greater variety of students?
We do the probably the biggest thing, we're kind of in leadership. I think at least 2 of the females that are on the team are good candidates to if they want to be in leadership for next year. And so that would be a great thing if they do. Most of what we're doing for the recruiting is actually we're going to the student club fairs outside of engineering and just trying to get a more diverse background of college majors than just engineers, because there's a lot for various people to do, anything from marketing to business. But yeah, I mean, largely it's if the students are interested in aerospace, it's mostly just them talking to each other, like, look at this cool thing I've been doing. We usually go to the different freshman classes each year, but again, that's like a 4-year return before they really show up in leadership.
And we can, Donna, I see your other question about the ethnicity of students involved and things like that. If we have time during the meeting, I might be able to ask Rosalie to look at we do have student participant forms for Dan's students, and we might be able to pull some of that before the end of the meeting. If Rosalie, if you think you're able to work on that. And so, okay, with that, if there's not any other questions for Dan, we'll go on to Fang, and I'll share the slides here. All right.
Okay, thanks, Susie. My name is Fang Li, our faculty member in college engineering at University of Idaho. And I actually started this work on this project or similar projects since 2014 when I joined University of Idaho as a clinical member. And at that time, actually, another faculty member in college engineering working on this, or maybe he started this vast project. He actually later retired and joined GPL in 2017. And because I was a senior design senior design instructor, and I just continued this work, even though that faculty member no longer here to lead this team. And then since then, I worked 2 years, but for the VOS team, I have little knowledge, but I just work as the instructor for senior design and continue the capstone. So, so for the past year, I was actually, so Dan has said a lot about the kind of their goals background for this vast team. And so in the past, there's one actually led by one professor. And because of a historical reason, and so now we just divided two, so I work on their senior design part. And so for their last year, the main technical objective was to design and test a TDRV, the tube deployed reentry vehicle for potential use on Mars and as weather station. And this project can be treated as Earth's serve award from NASA AMS, actually, actual PI from NASA AMS. And we just recruited the senior design students. This year we have 7 students and 4 different majors, MEE, CS, and biological engineering. So, and we just follow their senior design sequence, like capstone design, concept design review, engineering release review. And then we have the NASA AMS visit from the students in April, and then engineering expo in late April. And typically we submit a conference paper. But this year, because for the work, maybe I talk a little bit more about the technical part. The technical part, so mechanical part, mechanically, so maybe Susie, can you just share the second slide?
Sure.
Thanks. So not so much to show here. Basically, I just show here their brown. Here, there's a TDRV reentry vehicle, and so they're the first picture on the top left. So they actually are preparing for that launch. Yeah, thank you. And this is the improvement actually. This was the improvement. And I think the second figure, they launched their balloon and with their TDRV. And the third one is in the air already. And I think the fourth one is successfully landed in Moscow. And the last figure shows the map of the launch from a location improvement to Moscow. Yeah, so the launch was successful, and mechanically every year looks like mechanical guys work excellently. So I think there are some electrical design. This year we get a little bit weak team in electrical engineering. I mentioned because I actually no longer work as the senior design instructor from last year, so I out of my control and last year. So every year still mechanical very strong, and I think so. And we continue next year. We continue to strengthen electrical, and we are getting involved and get more because of weakness last year the ISGC team. So and we are just potentially submit our conference paper after finish the electrical design next year. So this is our general plan. Please go back to the last slide. Yeah, thank you. And then for the 5th year, so we want to continue. We want to continue to work with NASA AMT. I believe this is a wonderful collaboration with NASA AMT. We have senior science students directly work with the NASA PIs, and they currently like over the past several years too. Of our alumni researchers continue to work at NASA AMS after graduation. And I think this is a good model, and these two vendors continue actually just work on the scene design or advise partially the scene design projects. Is an amazing experience. I think it's pretty much what I have. Yeah, and another thing maybe you need to mention is Dan's vast team is really helpful in the past year, because these projects you can see from last slide, so they rely heavily on the balloon, and actually the vast team just gathered a lot of experience in balloon launches and collection. So very helpful from vast team.
Thank you. Okay. And any questions for Fang? Okay. Not seeing any right this second. So I believe that next up is Idaho Tech with David Coughlin. So I will pull up your slides, David. Sorry. If it will let me. No.
Okay. Thank you. My name is Dave Coughlin. I am here at ISU. Idaho Tech is a program that is part of a pipeline to get STEM-related fields to NASA and other related areas. So if you go ahead and flip over. We've been around for a lot longer than I've been part of this project. I think it's over 20 years now. But we do engineering design competitions with 4th through 6th graders in 3 separate locations across the state. Do Pocatello, Mountain Home, or sometimes Twin Falls, as well as Moscow. And so this year we were able to do all 3 competitions. We had a total of 24 teams between 4 and 6 students in grades 4 through 6. So it's kind of redundant, 4th through 6th graders and teams of 4 to 6. This year we had approximately 110 participants. I'm not certain if I'm plus or minus 2 on that, because I had 2 different lists of students. So maybe the 108 arrived and 112. So I just went with the approximate number there. What they do is they design a Lego Mars rover that is remote controlled, and they compete in a series of 8 competitions as part of the engineering design test. 4 of those competitions are driving the actual rover. There is a blind driving where the actual driver has a blindfold on, and there is a designated communicator for that driver, and they have to get around the course within the 5-minute time limit, avoiding obstacles and avoiding engineering disasters. There's speed test, which is exactly what it sounds. Don't get stuck. You get points deducted if you get stuck and have to move your rover. There is the hill climb event. Once again, just higher and higher, all the way up to 60 degrees, which, believe it or not, something like 6 different teams made it up a 60-degree ramp. And the other one is rock collection, where they have to go pick up or scoop up somehow our styrofoam rocks of different colors from a rugged landscape and collect them to be taken away back to the collection area. And so that's what we basically do. Let's go ahead and go on to the next one.
Oops.
Because we have had some extra money, because 2 years ago, year 1 of the grant, we could not travel anywhere. So there's been extra travel money, and some other places where we had reduced numbers of teams. So we've been trying to upgrade our website. Our whole College of Education website down here in Pocatello is being upgraded. And so we want to have a brand new website for both the adults and the students. Can I ask to be given the ability to share?
Sure.
The pictures I didn't find, but it talks about how we are working on videos for students. And so this is one of the things we're
Hey Kyle, let's test our carefully designed rover today.
Hot diggity, I can't wait.
Introducing the first generation of the rover. The battery case and motor are attached to the rover. Let's try it out.
It is looking good. I can't wait to take it for a spin. This rover looks nice, but boy, is it slow.
Luckily, even if it is slow, it looks like this rover can drive safely on flat ground.
Yes, better safe than sorry, I always say. Let's test this rover on the ramp. Whoa, it fell apart.
Oh no!
Well, this is messy. Let's try to learn from it.
What went wrong?
Well, we know it wasn't because I was moving too fast.
Well, things normally break apart because there's too much pressure.
Good point. Yeah, it's like when you're writing with a pencil and you push down too hard and make the tip break.
So, what was the cause of too much pressure?
Well, maybe I shouldn't have eaten that extra burrito at lunch.
I don't think it was the burrito. I think that maybe it was the weight of the battery case. Perhaps it was too heavy for the rover to withstand the gravity of it while driving the ramp.
I think you're right. But we need the battery. So how do we stop our rover from breaking again?
Oh, I have an idea.
Yay.
Maybe we can install the battery case vertically like this to reduce the number and location of pressure points. Also, the extended bracket strengthens the front wheel and body of the rover, and it holds the rover together.
Sounds like a plan. Let's rebuild.
If you have any different ideas, you can try it with your team.
What did we learn here today? The rover broke, but it's only a failure if the team quits and doesn't try to improve it. When Cassie and Kyle saw the breakdown, they talked and thought about what happened rather than getting upset. So they turned a breakdown into an opportunity for improvement.
I don't think we need to see the credits, so I'll stop my sharing. But obviously, the moral of this story is there's no such thing as a failure unless you quit. And so we're looking to teach them the first engineering principle is when something breaks, you learn from it. And so that's part of our goal in the pipeline. We need to find a Lego minifigure that can be the professor there. So that's why we don't have images. So you saw draft number 3. And we also recognize that we have some audio balancing to do. And so that's some of our goals there. So we're wanting to create those videos as part of a new curriculum or an addition to the curriculum as well. So I don't know if I have another slide, I don't recall. Oh yeah, in terms of our metrics, we wrote all the metrics pre-COVID. And so our participation is not yet up to that level. However, we are finally triple digits in terms of total numbers of students. And so our goal here is we're going to be recruiting teams, contacting schools in August and September instead of in December. And we're looking into creating even more of a support system for our adult team sponsors with videos for them. Basically, okay, here's an example of what happens. How do you react to it? And some suggestions for how to build stronger rovers that they can provide to their learners at some point when it's appropriate, rather than just everybody seeing it at the same time. So we're looking at those videos for the main engineering points. Turning radius, getting high centered, which happens a lot. Susie can attest to that because she comes over and watches it. Being too wide to fit through some of our Mars terrains and things like that. So tips for the adults as well as those videos like the one that you saw for the learners. Since I didn't, oh yeah. In terms of our year 5 budget, we've got a student coordinator that we pay. And so we're looking to keep 100% of that funding. The fringe, we seem to have always overestimated, even though we followed ISU's guidelines for that. So we can cut it way down. The travel budget, we've still got extra from year 1. So we're going to zero that out. Also cutting out the services and supplies budget by 50%. The participant support, if I am allowed to, I'll cut it down to 0. And then the indirect costs will be reduced. And so it's a little over half of the regular annual budget of $25,000. And then I didn't find the pictures. My student coordinator left at 12:30. So they're on his phone, darn it.
Oh, sorry. I was muted. That was great. I love the video, David. That was great. Does anyone have questions for David before we
I
move
have a
on?
couple questions.
Okay.
How do you recruit? One of the things I saw as a former teacher is a lot of the clubs ended up being like a stay-at-home mom that was able to give up her time to do it, and then it was that kid's friends. So how do you work on trying to make it so that students that are underserved have the opportunity to participate and be on teams? Is there any kind of incentive for teachers to be the leader for the program?
In some cases, teachers act as individual team leaders. In some cases, teachers act as coordinators for parents, community members to be a team sponsor. We have not, in this version of the grant, gone out of our way to try to encourage underrepresented groups, mostly because we see teams that are entirely filled out by girls in some cases. We do see teams that are entirely boys. We see mixed teams. I don't know the ethnic breakdown, but I have heard some communication in Spanish. I believe that we have a noticeable number of Hispanics in our the teams, but I have not gone any distance along the lines of let's encourage this. We did back in 2018, 19 or 17, 18, run kind of a parallel grant with this. There was one of the 1-year funding grants where we were asking for teams that included at least one special education or special needs student on it, because everybody must participate. One of the competitions I didn't mention was the presentation, and no one is allowed to be, I'll just be the one that hits the arrow going forward through the slides. Everyone must speak. And so it was difficult to recruit teams to with those qualifications. I've got pictures of teams from the past. It is not noticeably, to my recollection, too much white male, but I cannot guarantee you and promise you that because I'm not actively doing anything to encourage the teachers. I know that when teachers do this, it is almost always done as an after-school club. which at the 4th and 5th grade level can be very difficult. It's donation of time, and that's why we usually get pretty darn good cost share. Did I answer it, or? did I
Yeah,
just-
so that, I think you hinted at the fact that teachers aren't, there's not really an incentive besides kindness of your heart. Like, does it help with travel expense or any of that for the teacher? I just feel
Mhm.
like if we can get teachers, parents are great and I love parent support, but teachers make it so it's a little more accessible to all students rather than a chosen few friends of one parent.
Because I misinterpreted with some help from our OSP, one of the qualifications of our budget area that was the participant support, we are offering now this year and for the next year, and then hopefully year 5, funding for travel to the events. And so we're not asking teachers to pay for gas out of their own pocket. And that's for both, small school buses, because sometimes we have 4 or 5 teams from the same school. We have not looked into trying to do a stipend for the teachers that are involved. In the past, it's been difficult enough to stuff everything into our budget anyway. We've been very fortunate that while we've had small numbers, especially in Moscow, we've been able to find a very, very reasonably priced event center up there, the 1912 Center. They cost us about 1/5 of what UI charged us the last time we used the Kibbe Dome. And so we've had trade-offs everywhere. In Moscow, we meet on a Friday because that's coincides with the UI engineering fair. And so UI engineering profs there, if you've seen a bunch of 10, 11, 12-year-olds running around, that's my fault through your exhibits. But we do it on Saturdays for travel. And I've learned that the Catholic schools in Twin Falls and in Idaho Falls don't like it if we do it on the Saturday before Easter. So there's just a lot of evolutionary process about it. But I'm willing to steal any good ideas you're willing to share on how to get more teachers involved.
I would just say, so I'm with the State Department. I don't remember if you were on the last call or not, but when you're getting ready to recruit, please reach out to me because our new superintendent is very big on, it doesn't have to be something that we're doing to promote it. If it's things that you guys are doing that we can help promote, we can get that into the superintendent newsletter that goes out weekly. And
Okay.
then I also have a science coach Facebook page that I can put these kinds of opportunities out there. So when you're looking to recruit and getting ready to do all of that, please don't hesitate to reach out to me.
I think you're in my notes from last meeting. But you're in this week's meetings notes too, so thank you.
Wonderful. I think we're just gonna move on just because I don't want, we are running a little bit behind. But if anybody has additional questions for David or whatnot, you can put them into the chat and we'll make sure he gets those or whatnot. Or you can email them to us. Going on, Rosie, you'll be the next one if that is good for you.
That
Let
works.
me pull up your slide here.
Okay. I just want to point out, thank you, Heidi and Bobby, for being on this Zoom call with me. I appreciate the support. So yes, I am Rosie Alberti. I am the Bridge to Success Coordinator. Just a quick brief history on the program itself. We did have our pilot year back in 2016, so we've been going strong since then. Our first year, we had 24 students in the program. We currently are over 500 plus students. So we have come a long ways from day one. I'm happy to report that we do have 6 staff members. Well, the budget for 6 staff members. Unfortunately, we are currently going through Some changes, our senior coordinator has stepped down from her position, and so we'll be navigating those waters, trying to fill the position and getting us back to full staff. So you guys get me today. So real quick, our program since the beginning has been designed to help students create a foundation. We are very, very strong on the supportive side of our students. That includes everybody who is going down the STEM fields to people who are going down CTE fields as well. We do start our program off in the summer. So our summer here at CSI is an 8-week program. And so this gives the opportunity for students to get a head start in their transition to CSI. We do focus a lot on giving these students what those academic expectations are. A high percentage of our students are coming right out of high school. And so we have felt that that has been super important to give them those opportunities to really know what it's like to be in a classroom setting with our instructors and what those expectations are and how they differ from high school expectations. We also want to make sure that these students are very, very knowledgeable on all the resources we have on campus. We've seen that this does increase student success. We also want students to build positive relationships, not only with ourselves and the faculty, but with their peers. A lot of times when students have this sense of belonging, they succeed in ways that they didn't even think they could. So again, we're here to provide that support, be someone that they can turn to, rely on, and always have someone in their corner the entire time they're here at CSI up until they graduate. Our objective, our mission really with partnership with this grant is recruiting more students to be part of STEM majors and then getting them through the 2 years here at CSI and then moving them on to the university. And so we do that with scholarship opportunities through the grant. And then we also have developed a mentor program for them. This year, we actually do have a STEM major student who is mentoring future STEM majors. So we do have a small group of students who are interacting with a second-year student. The big impact for us really is, again, going into the high schools, recruiting more of our rural areas, more female, first-generation students, and then our minorities to get them here again, get them transferred out to the universities in those STEM areas. Our budget, our spending plan is, again, like I said, we do have those scholarships. That's how we incentivize the students to come to CSI to be part of the STEM majors. We do have a 1-to-1 match. Our foundation, we have an amazing foundation who has graciously supported us every year since the beginning of our program. So the way it just breaks down is in the fall, students will receive the 1680. Again, that's a 1-to-1. And then in the spring, the same thing. The plan for year 5, if that is where we end up and everything lines up, we're just going to be doing the same thing. We'll request the same amount for that 1-to-1 match with our foundation. And then our metrics and milestones. We are staying pretty steady in all of our areas. Our minority percentage did go down a lot. I would tack that up to just our restructure of the program, having additional members, staff-wise, coming in, just figuring out where we're going as we grow and become bigger and better. So that area is a focus for year 4. Fortunately, I'll be out in the high schools. I know what we're looking for, so we'll get that number up. I do want to report that our on-time graduation has gone up a lot from where it was, so we're super proud of that. But overall, our metrics and milestones are lining up with where they need to be for the grant. If you could go to the next slide, please. So just compiled some pictures of our students. These pictures are activities that we do with our students. We did also have a graduation dinner we put on for our students. Again, all our students are anywhere from STEM majors to CTE majors. So this is a combination of all our students together. We do try to give our students opportunities to go out and explore new things, especially for those who are our first time students. Again, we want to have a sense of belonging for these students. We want them to feel like CSI is home. And a lot of times we take advantage of the fact that we have such a beautiful area right here in our backyard. And so we'll take students hiking, we'll take them outside to our ropes course. But this is what we do. This is what Bridge is all about, is we're here to support, we're here to engage, and we're here to create a sense of belonging for these students so they're comfortable and they develop those skills that they can use as they go out into the workforce and as they move on to the university.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Donna, I currently don't. With our senior coordinator stepping down from her position, I don't have that data, but I do know that we do have a good percentage that does move on to the universities. Typically, we see a majority of them going to University of Idaho. We have had a few in the past go out to ISU.
Wonderful. Any other questions for Rosie? Okay. I don't see any. So then, Steve, you're up. And Steve runs 2 programs. So I'll pull up your slide, Steve.
Thank you.
Okay. Sorry. Okay.
As Susie pointed out, I do 2 programs. They are related though. Both of them do projects out of the Johnson Space Center under their NASA Microgravity University challenges. And the first one here is NASA Suits, which the challenge is to build an XR informatics system for an astronaut in a spacesuit. And our team even takes that a little bit farther when we put the whole system between mission control and the astronaut and make it a system that can help all the participants go along with that. The idea is in the fall, the students get together and create a team and write a proposal to NASA. That takes up most of the fall, usually it's due in October. And then we wait to get to see if it happens or not, and then continue on and develop and then test at the Johnson Space Center. However, this last year, we realized a couple of different issues happened this year. At the beginning of the year, we had a lot of new students for our NASA Suits team who hadn't had any experience with it. And it does take some lead time to get yourself proficient in the XR world and NASA Suits itself. Usually we have probably, I say 5 to 7 students from the previous year participate. So it helps out with the team. We didn't have that this year. And then we also realized from our last year, the previous year, that we didn't have a good configuration control system. We used to have one. That product ended up now costing money, and we couldn't use it. And GitHub does not work well with Unity. So at the end of the previous year, we couldn't get all our software to work together when we went to NASA to test it all. And it ended up being a big issue. So we said, okay, we have to solve that problem first. And we did work on that. However, it took away from our ability to do the proposal well, I think. And we left that to a lot of the newer students, and that didn't work out as well as we wanted, and it didn't get accepted. However, after that, the students got together still and worked hard and wrote a nice paper on really, which was a really good proposal, would have been similar to the proposal about how this information system would have worked or wants to work. And the paper was accepted to a conference of human computer interaction. And it did so. I liked it a lot too. So I offered to the students a different proposal for the testing of the product, that we would do a test in Boise area. And I will bring in NASA, an astronaut, it's actually 2 of them, and a flight director to play mission control. And we would do the test in Boise, but it would be a lot of work because we would have to design the simulation ourselves, do all the extra components, aspects of that. And they all agreed they wanted to do that. So that's the path we went down. So we changed the budget up a little bit to reflect that. No travel this year, but we're going to do extra stuff to try to set up a simulation. ended up working out really well. I thought it actually, the team worked really hard. They had to do many different things besides just create the software. We had to create rovers that the astronauts could control through the head display, all sorts of different things. So it was a bunch of extra work, but the team really actually did really well on that aspect of it. So I was pretty happy to have all that. In ways, it might have been better because more team members could participate in the test. When we go to NASA normally, only about 5 get to travel. And so this was, everybody got to be involved, and even other students at the university got to help out, and ended up being a good event all around. And they got to meet actually the commander of Artemis II, came out as one of the astronauts to help us out on the test. So they all got to meet him, and a former NASA astronaut, Dottie Metcalf, who's now living in Seattle, friend, she came over and helped out too. So it ended up being a really good experience. So I think that was great. And I did, I think, learn a lot about just what it takes to put on something like this, and all as any team project does, like you guys have all mentioned before. The learning aspect is the most important part of this feature. And the idea that you are going to fail at times, and you need to then recover from your failures and learn from that. For budget, as you notice, this one is definitely down on spending, because the first year we did not go due to COVID to Houston. I'd say about 80% of the cost of the program is travel to Houston. So that cut us down. The next year, we only took 3 people due to NASA's requirements of limiting the number of people going. And then this year again, we didn't go to Houston, but we did do the test, but that wasn't near as expensive as doing the test or going to Houston. So that definitely cut us down. So we'll definitely have some ideas to do. I like what I'm hearing from other people about possibly hiring some students to be leadership. We do have a leadership program, but it's all volunteer. And I like that idea of possibly paying somebody to have that job. I think that's a really good idea. So I appreciate your guys' input on that aspect. So I think for this program, though, we will have probably all the money we need for 5th year already in it. I will verify that out. Another possibility I was thinking about, we do have a robotics problem, and I talked about it last year, that there is now another Artemis challenge from NASA that is lunar robotics out of KSC, and we could possibly do that with the extra money. I'll have to figure out how that works out, but I think that's actually a possibility. So I think that we have a way to go through the 4th and 5th years fine with this program. Impact, I think it's a great, they learned how to work on a team, et cetera, all the standard stuff you get for being in one of these programs. You guys all know about that. I do like, we've had, last year, I've had 2 students now working at NASA coming from this program, which is usually somewhat a little bit unusual because it's the AR/VR world. And that's not huge for NASA compared to the rest of some other spots of the world. So the fact that 2 of them are actually in there working right now and enjoying it, and I'm hoping to create a little bit of a pipeline. They both took the same path, getting an internship first and then going on and working at NASA. And we're trying to keep that going. So hopefully that will work out for us. Also, as a part of this program, NASA requires the students to do outreach to local schools, local population, et cetera. And so we try to do that as much as possible. I realize, though, with COVID and other things that are out of my control or other teams' control, the metrics we probably set were maybe a little bit unrealistic, and how many people we're going to reach and how many schools we're going to reach. It seems to have dropped off some, but we're still doing approximately anywhere from 6 to 8 outreach events during the year, reaching quite a few people, but not as many as we proposed in inertial metrics. We do have one paper I said was written this year, and we are actually doing another one to put into the results of our simulation and how that all worked out compared to what we wanted to work out. And so we can then say the things we would modify in our design, which will then all go into next year's proposal. So I think we're really set really well for next year's proposal. And the team is, I got a good set of people coming back for this year. So we'll have a very experienced team already with a good idea of what they want to write in the proposal. Any other questions?
Just
Oh,
so you
thank
don't have
you very
to
much.
Oh, you already read it.
Yeah, just read it. Just pulled it up. Yes, I will do that. Yes, I know. And Megan's on the line here, and she helps us tremendously in that area too. She's great at knowing the local school districts, et cetera. So I do appreciate her help in that area tremendously. And actually help. Another aspect of both this program, the other one is Boise State has incorporated the vertically integrated projects. So students can get credit for this. However, I say only about half of them take that advantage of that situation due to different reasons. I would like to get it to more of them would actually take the course or take the project as a class. I think it would be better for everyone involved. But I don't want to require that because I don't want to knock people out who would want to do this, but maybe don't want to spend any extra money or for other reasons, they don't need the credit or something like that. So I think that's a really good aspect that Boise State is trying to do here is to bring that up and even get technical elective out of these classes for certain degree programs.
And Steve, did you want me to show the pictures at the end after your
Yeah, because the other one's only the pictures are there from the microgravity team. So
yeah. Okay.
we'll just go on to that one.
Yeah,
Unless there's more questions. If there's any more questions on this, please let me know. So the other team does again Microgravity University Challenge, and it's called the Micro-G Next Challenge. And I have to admit, I don't even know what NEXT, the acronym, stands for in this situation. But it's, of course, it's NASA, and you got to have those. But really, the idea is they are making a tool that is going to be used on a spacewalk. It could be a lunar tool or one for a micro-G in a sense on a space station. This one we happened to pick was for on the space station and a zip tie installer. The idea that it would be non-motorized or non-electronic, and they could then use it to zip tie around objects of less than 2 inches in diameter. And because right now in the world with the gloves on, a zip tie is really almost impossible to use on a EVA. And so what we use right now are called wire ties, originally just a cable of wire, thick wire, like bronze wire that you can then wrap around it and twist it. And it's just a lot of effort involved for doing what you want to do. So NASA would like to have a zip tie installer for use on the International Space Station. So they put out this challenge, and that's the one we chose. And the team did the research, wrote the proposal. This one was accepted by NASA. So they continued on going through the development process of making prototypes, testing them, changing the design, and keep going through this process till they came up with a final design. And I have to admit, this actually was quite a difficult task for the team. It ended up being a lot more complicated than they thought it was, just like most things are. But they did really, really well on it. I would say we didn't travel until June, and they worked pretty much from the end of school, which was May 8th or something. They were in the machine shop pretty much every day until we went off to Houston. And so they worked really hard on this project to get it to go. Spending is better on this one since a little bit different. We did go all the years except for the first year, and due to COVID. And then this year we actually took 9 people. It's normally 6 people, but NASA offered us with about 3 weeks before we travel to say, hey, we have room for more. If you'd like to bring a few extra people, you can do that. And since the budget showed we could do that, we went and did that. So it gave more experience for more people to get this NASA experience, going to the Johnson Space Center, working with NASA engineers, the NBL operational team. I think that was a great experience, a learning experience for the students. Along with that, also we found out, I realized we've had quite good luck at, we have 3 former students right now working at the Johnson Space Center. And that's great. And 2 of them actually are right there having NASA internships. And I realized just from LinkedIn that 3 others are now working at aerospace companies. And that's only from the last couple of years. And I realized I need to keep more track of LinkedIn on what these former students are doing. And I don't know if that's something Susie does. The ISGC have a LinkedIn page that we can all connect with.
Yes.
And yeah, I was thinking the students should get on that now because they're all starting to use LinkedIn on a regular basis. And then we can be able to track where they go and where they are at the end of that. Yeah, I just realized that because I was talking to another student just last week. I met, I hate to say this, but in a brewery, and but she was on the team a few years ago, but now is getting her doctorate and just got NAFTA Pathways at KSC, working on material science and she's going to do her thesis with NASA, her dissertation with a NASA program as she does her pathways. And I didn't have any idea this was happening from a former student. So I got to keep better track of what the students who've come through this program have done. You can also see the same idea with the outreach. Yeah, go ahead. You can go to that picture. I think that's a good picture to go to. So this is what the students did at the Johnson Space Center. They had to, in the upper left, is after they tested their tool, they had to do a poster session in a kind of big area of the Space Center, and where the employees at the Space Center knew it was there and come around and talk to all the students, give them ideas, and just to be able to talk to them about their ideas and their processes they went through. Upper right is the tool in the water at the NBL. That's the diver who's going to work on it to give it a try. Lower left is the team and Megan and I with them at the NBL. And then lower right is the students got to direct the divers to go through the operation of their tool about for 10 minutes. So they got to actually be part of the test, run the test exactly. So they had to write the procedures, everything they want to do, even off-normal procedures, et cetera, for the test as they went through it. And that was a great experience for them to have to go through that process of working at the NBL itself. Any questions?
There is a question in the chat for you, Steve.
Okay.
And do you have students who overlap between both programs, or are they two completely separate groups?
Yes, I do. I have a couple of students that overlap. So I'll just say, so SUITS is mostly computer science students, and we have GIM, which is Gaming Interactive Multimedia, which is a lot of Unity software. So the students, some of the Unity software people come from there. I need other software though people, but this year we also have a couple of physics students, applied math, and a couple of mechanical engineers also on the team. And so it's kind of a diverse team, and we needed all that especially to put this whole simulation together. And that was a great aspect of it. So those, that works out. The microgravity team is mostly mechanical, I would say, because of what we pick, but we do have 2 electrical this year, 1 computer science, and a couple of material science also involved with that.
And a physics student and a business student.
Thanks, Megan.
All right. Well, does anyone else have any other questions for Steve? Otherwise, I know we are running long, and we really appreciate your time. We just have a couple more slides just to finish up. And
Heidi, do you have a question?
Yeah, I have a
sorry.
quick question for Steve.
Go ahead.
How do you choose who gets to go to the space centers?
The team chooses.
Oh.
We have a leadership on the team. Of course, they're going to go mostly, and then they pick. And Megan and I will we make sure it's appropriate who gets picked, right? We make sure that but we've never had to veto the whole process. They do a really good job.
Excellent. Okay. So I just want to thank all of the Proven Idaho programs for putting together their presentations and sharing their progress with you. And so let me just go back to sharing my screen for a second. Okay. So just as a reminder, if you haven't already been casting your votes and whatnot, we appreciate, and if you need a little bit of time, obviously, it'd be just ideal if we could do it today. Or whatnot, but mainly because we need to know who we think should be going on into the 5th year, because we need to collect very specific inputs from them for that process. Okay. And so so we just wanted to, other questions you can maybe think about, because I'm not sure that we really have time for a discussion unless Matt, you want to take the time, but to consider, you know, this was a pilot that we have done, and we don't have to answer this right this second, but it's for us to be thinking about for the next multi-year award, right? So that NASA is telling us that they will release the solicitation for the next like 5-year award next spring. And so the question, and it's not just from the affiliate point of view, but also from those people like Steve and David and everybody and Rosie, the people who ran the Proven Idaho programs, did having that kind of funding stability, was that helpful? Or, you know, was it not that much of a benefit, you know, or that kind of thing. And so we'll try to find some time to be talking about this in the coming months, so that we can plan accordingly whether or not, you know, we want to continue with this structure that we've done as an experiment this time. And then if we do continue it, you know, then how do we choose the next round of Proven Idaho programs? Do we make them for the full 5 years, or do we just make it for 3 years and then they have to apply for additional years or something like that? So those are just some thoughts to have. And certainly you can put those into your surveys if you want, but just to have that floating in your head in case as we, oh, and I see some people that David Coughlin, Dan Lawrence said, yes, it was very helpful. So just to think about that. Any questions about that for the moment? I'm not seeing any. I can't see everybody. So next, so as you know, we are working on this 5th-year extension proposal. You should have received an email this week that had information on how to get to that draft and all the materials. So just to make it easy, hopefully for you, is that all of those materials are on this on our website. So if you click in here, you will see, you'll get here to a guest area. You guys have the password. It's ISGC 2023, right? And so then it will let you go in here, and here, once we're done with this meeting, we'll post the slides, but you can download the draft proposal. You can take a look at the draft affiliate letter, because as a reminder, we need a concurrence letter from every affiliate that they have looked at the proposal and that they agree with what's in it. And you would just basically put your name here. You could put your logo, and you can change this however works for you. And then you can also, then once you have done that, you would fill out this form to upload your copy of your concurrence letter. And you can have comments related to the proposal here. Also, if you feel so inclined to mark up the proposal, you can also upload a tracked version, a track changes version of the proposal here. So all of these links, everything is all in that one-stop shop. And that as we update the proposal, we'll always put the latest version here. The version that you guys have received, that it is, so just some of the notes on that, as I was mentioning here, is that the budget is roughly, you know, done, with the exception of how much money the Proven Idaho programs will request. And anything that the Proven Idaho programs do not request will just go into the competitive programs, if that makes sense. So it's just a little bit in flux. And then right now we're just working on milestones and metrics. So if people have ideas for milestones and metrics, we always like to entertain those. We're just asking that your concurrence letter, hopefully the draft is to a place where you feel like you get an idea of what we're doing. We're keeping roughly the same mix of programs as you guys have all approved in the past. Just the big difference will be, you know, the funding levels of the Proven Idaho programs, depending on what they need. And so we're just asking for your concurrence by July 17th, but please date it after July 5th because it has to be dated within 45 days of the due date of the proposal. And if you have questions or concerns or anything, please reach out to us, isgc@uidaho.edu, and we're happy to walk through things with you on that. And I see there's a couple things in the chat. Yeah. As far as the, oh, so I see that Matt's doing that. In the past, yes, you can have the vice president of research sign it, but a lot of times in the past, the affiliate representatives have just signed that they have reviewed it. And so it can be either, it depends on your institution and what they feel is good for them. This is just a reminder, we have 2 more annual affiliate meetings. And if you have some highlights you would like to share, please let us know so we can add space into those presentations and allocate time. And then this is just a little for fun in case you guys, we'll send this out, but you can send your name to Europa on the Europa Clipper, which is kind of fun. That's going to be launching in October of 2024. And that's it for right this second, because I'm just trying to blow through because you guys have been very kind as we've run a little bit late. So Matt, did you have anything else you wanted to share?
No, just thank you all for your time today. I know we went 30 minutes longer than originally planned, but it's because our Proven Idaho programs are doing such great work. So out of respect for your time, thank you very much. Please fill out your surveys, reviewing those Proven Idaho programs, and we'll see you in about 2 weeks.
Yes, and thank you for all the great questions, and thank you for all the time. And have a wonderful day.